Have I mentioned before that browsing on Facebook Marketplace is dangerous for me?
Somewhere in a dusty, dirty back alley in western Arizona, not far from historic Route 66, is an old fart trying to cram a square peg into a round hole. He'll work on anything, just as long as it's got at least 2 cool wheels.
Hello, my name is Mike and these are some of my bikes. Now, if you've watched previous episodes, you watched me drag these 2 Kawasaki 440 LTDs home, and you also watched me get the one over here that looks a little better fired up, only to find that it had a bad engine rattle or knock. And then in one of my shorts, I also got the kind of scruffy, beat up, uglier looking one, also fired up to find that the engine runs pretty good. Now, some of you might say, hey, merge the bikes together and come up with one good bike. Yeah, I kind of like that idea. And that's kind of what I had in mind in the first place. And in fact, the guy I got it from, maybe that's what he was planning to do. This was his daily rider, developed an engine noise, bought an ugly bike with which to steal the correct parts to get it less rattling and noisy. And looking at the 2 bikes, well, that might have been a task because, see, this is chain drive, this one's belt drive. I don't know how easily those engines interchange. I looked at the possibility of buying a used engine, like on eBay for this bike, and, well, the cost of a used engine is more than I paid for the entire bike. And that doesn't include shipping. Shipping alone is more than I paid for the entire bike. So, new engine for this bike, out of the question. Now, you might think that I would want to focus on the better looking of the 2 bikes, but instead I'm going to do something a little different this time than I would typically do. So let me discuss my other bikes for just a minute. And as you can see, most of my bikes are fairly large, heavy road bikes designed to go on pavement. Now, as I age, I find that, well, my coordination, my muscular strength, all those things are starting to deteriorate just a little bit. And, if I were to drop one of these big bikes, well, may have a little difficulty getting it back up on 2 wheels. In fact, my heaviest bike, the cross country, well, I've dropped it before, and I've been able to just barely get it back on its wheels. And if I'm on any kind of an incline and it goes over, well, ain't gonna happen. So, one of the things that I'm gonna have to do is I'm gonna have to look at bikes that are a little bit lighter and so forth, especially if take them off-road where the ground is slippery and I could fall over more easily and break some geriatric bones. And of course, I got to make sure that when the paramedics come to save my butt, they won't have too much trouble picking the bike up off of my injured carcass. So, this is what I decided I'm going to do. Alright, all that having been said, what I decided to do was rummage through all my spare parts. I don't throw anything away. If you're a good cheapskate, you're also a good pack rat. You hang on to everything, never knowing what you're going to need. So I've got odds and ends parts. There's a broken plastic inner fender, there's a speedometer. I've got a series of aftermarket lights and stuff. And then I ordered some more parts for this bike. And what we're going to do is we're going to fix up the ugly one of the 2 bikes. Interestingly enough, this gas tank looks a lot better, but it has leaks and a lot of rust in it. I took my probe scope, and I used my scope to look inside the tank here. It was actually in pretty good shape inside, so we cleaned this tank up. And as you saw in the other video, I got the carbs on this one, so this bike will actually run. And here's what we're going to do with all those spare parts and some additional parts I ordered that arrived. Yeah. I got tires. But look what kind of tires. Kind of knobby-ish, huh? Well, if you had guessed that I'm going to convert this street bike into an adventure bike, you would be correct. This bike is small enough and nimble enough and light enough that I can maneuver it on loose terrain and not likely to fall over and shatter several bones. Well, maybe one or two bones. But I'm going to have to do some modifications. So I've got a plastic front fender coming for it. I'm going to take the forks off this one because they're longer for whatever reason. They'll give me more suspension travel. And if I need to, I can also replace the rear forks or the rear shocks on this one. I'm going to do some weird stuff with the exhaust. This exhaust is all dented and beat up anyway. And then we'll be able to make an exhaust that gives us more ground clearance. Going to put the knobby tires on it. Going to fabricate some kind of a rear fender and seat since the seat's junk. And we'll have ourselves a retro adventure dirt Kawasaki thing. Anyway, that's the plan. Unfortunately, while I'm still waiting for parts to arrive, well, I've got to go get some medical stuff done. You know, when you're old, shit quits working like it's supposed to, and well, you end up getting to know an awful lot of doctors real well. So I'm going to be gone all next week doing some medical stuffs. When I come back, we're going to dig in and we're going to turn this into an adventure bike. I've already got a little bit of a start. And having finally made a decision on what to do with these vehicles, I actually loaded this one up in the back of my Ranger using my very handy hoist, took it to the motor vehicle department, got the correct inspections, got a bonded title, so I'll even be able to register this thing and be able to ride it on the street and off-road. Okay, so we're going to use these forks. These are a little shorter and they don't look quite as nice. I could take the gauges from that one. I'm not worried about the appearance as much. I'll probably throw some black paint over it. I've got some shorter bars coming, some enduro bars for it. As you can see, the tank's not nearly as good a shape as that one. It's got a lot of dents and chips in it, and I was going to just go ahead and sand it down and repaint it, but it's so bad. It's got so many dents and chips. It would have been a major project on a bike that really just going to get dropped in the dirt anyway. So I did what a lot of people like to do these days. I just threw some clear coat on it. Yeah, that's kind of a thing these days. It makes it look just as junky, only shiny, just as junky. I'm looking at some aftermarket cafe seats. They're a little shorter than this one, so they would end someplace in this area. The metal back fender's coming off, and I'll use that scrap of plastic fender there and fabricate a fender out of that. And as I said, I've ordered a plastic front fender for it as well. One of the things I need to do is this air box, well, this piece that goes in here is broken, and that's where the actual filter element goes. So I'm going to dissect this box and try to come up with some way to put a filter inside of here that can be removed and cleaned. So that's going to be a project all by itself because, as I mentioned before, getting these rubber tubes in here is a real pain in the neck. So I got to take the carbs off, pull this out, and try to, hodgepodge, fabricate, butcher something that I can use. So that's where we stand right now. So come back next week and I'll get a start on this. We'll capture all that. Maybe it might take me a week and a half or 2 weeks to put a video together and hopefully have a functioning off-roadable vehicle. That's the plan. I don't know about you guys, but I kind of like this wrapping paper. That's fancy. Must mean the tire inside is really, really good, huh? Probably not. Anyway, thanks for watching. Tune back in later on in the week when we have more progress on this. And thank you all for watching. Thank you all for subscribing. Every new subscriber helps me reach a number that's actually going to make YouTube pay more attention to me. Thanks for watching.